Jackie, you are a Celtic icon, but let me take you back to your younger days. When did you first, I'm presuming it was through your dad, but when did you first discover a football?
I think just as soon as I was walking. I always had a ball. I always played. My brother's a year and a half older than me, and used to play with him and kick about with him. And just all the time, just out playing, practicing, and my pals and playing games. So it's obviously watching my dad playing as well. My mum used to take me and my brothers to the game, although it was Celtic games to start with, but I don't really remember that. I was too young, but it was mostly Hibs, his career at Hibs. I remember going to watch him and I always wanted to be a footballer.
Was that because of your dad and because of watching him, or at that early age did you have a talent yourself?
No, I wouldn't think. I don't think you would say I'm going to be a football player. I've got a talent. I love playing football. I always have. You know, even now, as I said, like a wee boy looking forward to playing the Stallions game. You know, you see lads that don't play now that it doesn't affect them. Whereas, you know, personally, I'd give anything to go again and start to have a career again. You know, because it's something I loved.
You were a wee boy who was desperate to play football for the love of the game, but your dad obviously knew the kind of reality of being a footballer. Did he encourage you into it, or did he try and kind of keep you away from it?
I think he was a quiet influence. You know, my older brother Stephen played, but he didn't really play at a level. I think Stephen seen everything above the grass, above the ball. He didn't have great eyesight. He wasn't a technically gifted footballer, but he was very powerful. My younger brother, he wasn't really into football either, so you know, I was the one out of the three of us that maybe the football gene.
Yeah, so this is back in the kind of mid-late 70s, early 80s when you started out. What kind of footballer were you back then, growing up? You know, Cumbernauld Colts and then Gairdock United. What kind of style of player were you?
I was actually, believe it or not, I was a striker. A tiny little striker with pace. Used to score goals, make him through. My dad, we eventually moved through when I was 8 years old to Edinburgh. My dad was at Hibs obviously, and then I played under 9s and 10s for Salvis and Boys Club, then I dined at Hibs, and just kind of kept playing all the way through. Then trained with a number of clubs through here. It was before the big academies set up. As a young kid I was in at Hibs, training with Hibs as well as a Boys Club. And I think at 13, 14, they deemed I was too small. I trained at a few other places, and at 16 eventually Dunfermline took a chance on me. I had a bad leg break at 15 when I was at Dyna Hibs training one night, and I was out for 7 months. Thinking that could have been me at that time, but I managed to come back, and Dunfermline took me in the winter time. Then I just turned 16 and went in full time, and never looked back.
But were you still a striker then, or had you made the
I'd
kind of
moved
move
kind of
back?
wider, moved to the wide area, right midfield and centre midfield. But again, I was very, I was never a big enemy, but I was very small and very skinny.
It's funny how you were deemed too small even to be a striker, and yet you ended up making your name as a defender when you would expect to need to be even bigger.
Yeah, but again, I think the perception, I think it was worse then than it is now. I think with the players that have come into our game over the last number of years, you see the size, and with Messi's and Iniestas and Xavi's, it's more acceptable now. But back then,
you comparing yourself to them?
No, I'm talking about height. Maybe slightly taller, but I think being a defender back then, I always remember my debut for Celtic at home was against Partick Thistle. And I was watching it back that night. It was on the telly, and it was sports scene. It was Tommy McLean, and they showed some footage of me playing and singled me out after it. And Tommy just said, I just worry about defending the back post area with his height and things like that. So these little things usually stick in my mind and pride myself in not, that being my weakness.
Do you think that was kind of like the start, or you were one of the first of the kind of what we now call wing backs?
Yeah, I think it grew into it. I think when I first went to Celtic, Tommy took me as a full-back, and he loved, you see teams now, Tommy's, I think, was way ahead of his time. When you look at it now, look at the way full-backs play now, you look at the best teams in the world, you look at Barcelona, you look at Man City, the full-backs are wingers, and he wanted me to do that, and they had Simon in front of me, interacting, changing position and working on it. but everybody would look at that as a weakness and say, oh, they're leaving their centre halves exposed, but you had other players in the team that should be able to cover. You know, it's to try and, when you're playing with Celtic, you have the ball for the majority of the time. You have to look for ways to try and get in behind the opposition, especially when you've got all the possession. You know, and back then it was changing that. Then when Tommy left, it was Wim Jansen, who didn't want me to go forward at all. So for me personally, it was difficult to. You couldn't turn around to 60,000 people and say, look, I'm not allowed to go and attack now, I've got to sit here.
They're used to seeing you do it.
Used to seeing you doing it. So you're having to change your game, and I lost my position after 2 games. I think he played Davy Hannah at right back, or he played into Boydie. Then I came on in the European game against FC Tyrol when Darren had his problem, and he played me right midfield. And I done well, came on, I thought I'd done well, changed the game a wee bit. And then I started wing back, he changed his shape against Liverpool, and I scored against Liverpool at home. And I played wing back that day, then eventually he played me more as a right midfielder that season, and ended up being player of the year that season, just reinventing a position, which I seem to do quite a lot at Celtic, but to me it didn't matter if it was right back, left back, centre midfield, anywhere. I just loved playing.
So let's go back then, before we get to the Celtic days. You're a young boy growing up, you're playing the game, you want to play the game, you want to make that a career. Do you get much chance to follow a team? Who were the Celtic players that you remember watching when you were a boy?
I think as a kid, obviously my hero growing up was Dalglish. Predominantly he was at Liverpool. I just loved watching him playing and just his vision, and obviously my dad would talk about him, and you look at it and just, you know, it was my first pair of boots, Dalglish, Puma Dalglish Silver, and you know, just that was my hero growing up.
I was exactly the same. Kenny was my hero, big poster on the wall. The most nervous moment I ever had as a football journalist was when I met Kenny for the first time. You know what they say, don't meet your heroes, and I was terrified that he was going to be horrible, because it would just have ruined my childhood. Thankfully he was lovely, because he was a great guy as well, and just so down to earth.
Yeah, I was fortunate. He managed me a little bit at Celtic as well after John Barnes. Got to work with him that way, and seeing him in training. So no, I've been very, very fortunate. So
in making the move then to being a professional, what was that moment like? How proud a moment was that for you?
Yeah, I think that at the time at Dunfermline it was YTS, so we had something like 23 YTS players, and in some ways it was for a football club it was a no-brainer, because you could bring all these kids in, the government was paying it, you know, there's no gamble for the club, and I hope one of them makes it. I think out of that 23, there was a couple of made it to the first team. There's a lad before me, he was called Mark Bowes, he was a right back. He was in the first team, we played under 21s with Scotland, and I came in, he got injured, I came in and eventually took his position. You know, and as I said, I was there for 5 years, 5 great years at Dunfermline. I learned a lot with senior players. I think that was the best thing for me, was to go out and play. Who were the ones, because you were the new boy, you came through the YTS, who were the big characters in that dressing room that really kind of formed your character? I think they brought us down, and it was a couple that, you know, it was a tough place, because I said although I was 16, I looked about 10. You know, I used to get hammered every morning going in. You used to have 4 players to look after, so there was Norrie McCarthy, a fantastic guy, sadly he's no longer with us. Ian McCall, who was my favourite growing up, because he used to come in the morning and be like, what are you doing in here? You're in for autographs, get out, you know. And you have to look after certainly had 4 players to look after the kit. But then, you know, you just take it all in, and I'd say you're doing all the jobs, and you're cleaning boots, you're sweeping terracings, and it gives you a good ground and a want to be in that dressing room, and, you know, to take their jersey. And I suppose when you look back, they do that because they want to suss out the ones who, you know, the ones who are strong and the ones who are weak, essentially. And, you know, how much did that form your own character? Because, you know, you shared the dressing room in your career with some big egos and some big personalities. Yeah, and I'm fortunate enough to be captain as well with him. You know, I think that's, you know, you look at back, you don't think about the time, but then you look at the dressing room, you're going Lenny, Larsson, Sutton, Hartson, you know, and Bobo, you're looking at all these guys and going, and, you know, and you're captain, but at the time you're just doing your job. You don't, I think in your career you don't look at things, you don't analyse things like that, or what you've won or what you've done until you're finished, because it just flies in, you know. And my dad's saying the same to me, your career flies in, and you're like, aye, very good. And I'm saying the same things to boys now that I'm looking after, and I try to give them advice and pass on the little bits to help them.
Did you ever feel the pressure because of the career that your dad had in Scotland? Same name as well, and did you ever feel he was a quiet influence, so maybe not from him, but just from yourself?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. It's the early days, and there was other parents, he's only playing because he's dad and things like that, and I've had to deal with that. And my son had it a little bit when he was a few years ago, and I'd say to him, look, I had the same thing, here, and it's like, and you're proving people wrong, but these little things made me stronger. I think that's, to go and show that you're there on your own merit, not just because your dad's an ex-footballer.
How much of a dream was it then when Tommy Burns came in for you and you signed for Celtic?
It was incredible, because there was rumoured a few clubs were in at the time, and in the morning at Dunfermline when they rejected a bid, and I think it was about 600,000 or 650 or something. There was reports in the paper, and I went to see them and said, look, how much are you wanting from me? We signed an extra year and we wanted to be there, but I wanted a chance to go to Celtic, and then later on that day they accepted a bid on the Monday of 700 plus add-ons for Scotland cap. So they gave me permission to go to Celtic the next morning, and I lived at Dunfermline at the time. Me and my wife, we lived there, and we were actually went to watch Braveheart in the movies, and most people go and watch Braveheart. It's quite a powerful film, but I'd just sit in the car and go to Celtic tomorrow. Just
Can you even think
hours,
about it?
just whatever.
Mel Gibson shot.
Everybody else would come out there. I'm just sitting like that with a smile on my face watching that for 3 hours, thinking.
Did you feel just like a wee kid?
Aye, and I think it's something it's hard to put across, but I got the same feeling when the lads left us at Dundee United and was signing for Celtic, GMS and Stewart. It was like I was reliving my youth when I was absolutely gutted to see them going and leaving us at that point. But at the same time, I knew what they were feeling, because I'd had it myself growing up, and knowing that was there for them, and what was lying ahead for them in terms of their career.
I suppose it's like a lot of Celtic players, talking to Stilian Petrov, who, like you, achieved a lot with Celtic, and yet his greatest moment, he says, was actually the day he signed for the club. Similar to that, there is no greater feeling than the day when you actually become a Celtic player. Yeah,
and it was, I was so nervous going through there, and we went obviously to the medical, we went into the club, and Tommy showed us round, and it was just the main stand, and right across it was, corner flag to corner flag, and he's like, this is going to be all finished, there's going to be 60,000 people there, and there was nothing, both goals, there was nothing behind them, and you listen to him to what he's talking about, the plans, and then the vision he had for the club, and then what he was going to do for it, and I'm just sitting like, yep, so nervous, and doing my medical, and then he said, I'm going to start you tonight at Falkirk, and I'm just like, brilliant, I made my debut that night, signed that day and played that night. I was just straight into it right away, and never had time to think about it, never had time to dwell on it, which is probably the best thing for me.
I suppose you didn't need to be sold the club, but how contagious was Tommy Burns' enthusiasm at that time? I
think that was the biggest thing. I think anybody that knows Tommy and knows what he's like, and as I said, I use a lot of things myself from him in management, about demands and about treat every day like it's your last day, and how you train, how you play, and that was his his passion. For everything had to be the best, and with a passing drill or anything else, but his general vision for how he wanted to do things.
Many people who, the Tommy Burns era was a huge part of my life as well. Many people look back in that, and one big regret is that team deserved to win a lot more than they actually did.
Yeah, we did. I mean, we played some unbelievable stuff, and I know it was 2 points and 1 point at a time before the 3 points were introduced, and I think we just had too many draws that season. But the football we played, it was up there with one of my most enjoyable seasons, and in fairness, and I've had 10 great seasons there, and obviously been in an unbelievable winning team with trebles and stuff like that, but that was, for me, that was enjoyable, playing with Tommy, and the football we played, just couldn't get over the line.
Yeah, what was it like when he left and then Wim Jansen came in? Was it a complete kind of about turn? Was it a real big change? How difficult was that?
It was a culture shock. So you went from Tommy, who was, you knew exactly what he was thinking, what he was saying. There was nothing. Everybody knew. You know, he would tell everybody what he was doing, the passion he had. You know, after games, before games. With Wim was the complete opposite. He left you hanging. He left you. Everything was to the whistle. A training session, he wouldn't explain. Like after a game, he'd leave it to the Monday. He didn't want anybody confrontation, and he would do things on a Friday, and he'd put like a starting, maybe 7 or 8 players or 9 players, and then everybody going, that's a starting team tomorrow, and he against another team, and you were like, I'm not playing tomorrow, you know. And he was always testing you, always. But I kind of cottoned on to that. I just kind of, I knew that he was looking and testing people. He was testing, because there was a couple of other ones that showed their disgust that they thought they weren't playing the Saturday, and he was like, well, he's not going to play, even though it wasn't the team. A lot of time it could have been. Yeah. But I just went about it the same way, where I'd been starting, and what everybody thought was a starting team, or the one that was going to be playing against him. So my attitude would be the same. And I think that helped me get back into the team after the start. That must have been a big culture shock, as you say, going from a guy who, you know, you didn't have to ask questions, everything was open, everything was honest, and then you get a guy, you know, it's not that one's better than the other, yeah, it's completely different. Just different, and as I said, there's no right or wrong. You know, it's every manager I've had has been different in different ways. You know, and I think personally I took little things from both of them, because after games, when you're like a player, you're so angry and you want to single maybe 1 or 2 people out, but then the rest of them go home thinking, well, it's their 2 fault Saturday, I'm alright for the rest of the weekend. Whereas if you leave it open to the team, everybody's analysing their own performance. So there's little things there that, you know, you maybe use little bits there, but with Tommy, with Wim, with Martin, with Kenny, with John Barnes, that I maybe take from all of them. And with that season, of course, when Wim was there, yourself and especially the Scottish boys in the team, you know, Simon and Tom Boyd, it was such an important season because Rangers were on 9 in a row, stopping the 10. Did you ever feel it at any point in that season, perhaps early on, because of the new manager and the culture shock? Oh no, this could be a disaster. It was disaster. It was a tough start because of the fallout, and then I think we lost a pre-season game in Ireland. And then the fans would kind of like panicky, and then we lost the first 2 league games, and they changed it. We won away at St Johnstone, wasn't it? Dunfermline at home, yeah. The first game was a bit unlucky at Easter Road. I think everybody talks about, you know, the one Henrik's game when he gave them it wasn't Henrik's fault. You know what I mean? It wasn't even a bad pass, and it never came to it. And Chick Charnley's drilled one in for about 25 yards. So it was hardly a bit massive mistake, but everybody kind of dwelled on it. He did it right after that, though, didn't he? Let him off. Aye, but as I said, the last person I would have blamed at that point either. But we won now at St Johnstone, and we got a couple of results in Europe that helped us, and we grew in confidence. Then we went on, we won the League Cup, which gave us everybody a lift. We won the League Cup at Ibrox. So it was the first thing we'd won for a couple of years. The fans got that feeling, players got that confidence, and then, you know, we kicked on and we had a good team spirit through obviously the pressure. We had a good social life at the time as well. We got on, we done a lot of things, go-karting, and shared a lot of time together. And you know, we obviously got over the line. And you played your part, and you had a hand in the famous Bratback goal against St Johnstone. Yeah, that was. I felt like I scored it myself, to be honest. Just the feeling that going into the net, that you knew that was a game. You knew that was it. Just that feeling, the shivers on your back, and turning to the fans behind me in the stand. Harold was way the other way, but I turned to the supporters because it was like just the pure relief of getting it. Because you look back in that game and you tend to just see the goals now. So you see Henrik's early goal and then you see Harold's goal and you think, all right, fairly comfortable 2-0. But it wasn't at all. The early goal, then I think George Boyle had a chance for St Johnstone. Harold missed a few, didn't he? Aye, Harold missed a few with a few other chances in the game, but it was tense, and you're like, I never trust anybody that says that Rangers are getting beat or something else happening on the ground. I never trust it, you know. And I think I had a shot myself. I think I hit the post, and then I went and and the keeper, it was Alan Main, and he said something, as we got up, because I kind of patted him, he's, Rangers are getting our drawn, or getting beat or something, I can't remember what he said, but just like, aye, very good. And then Boydie played that ball over the top, and then put across for Harold, and that was just an unbelievable feeling.
And then of course, you've had one culture shock and one managerial change the season before. You win the title, you stop the 10, and then all of a sudden, Vim's away. What was that like?
Yeah, I think, there'd been so much speculation before it, and I don't think it came as a shock to many people when it happened. The ins and outs, we heard different stories. Vim he pulled us we're in Sporting Lisbon playing a game. He pulled us in the hotel after it and said, look, I'm leaving. And obviously we're all disappointed and upset about it, because we'd just been through quite a lot. Where the stories that, he wanted more players in because there's a lot is going to the World Cup and he was worried about the fallout from that, but only Vim knows, his relationship with Jock Brown, but he said he didn't go into it with us.
Were the players such a tight-knit group back then that essentially, the manager of course is important with tactics, but the unit doesn't fall apart when the manager goes and the manager changes?
Yeah, that's what we hope, but I think it's like any walk of life, any job, any industry. When somebody goes, your boss goes, and you're like, well, is he going to like me? A new player coming in, it's like he's going to bring his own players in. So I had that quite a lot. You having to win over another manager to be part of his system, like I'd done with Vim. I had to win Vim Janssen over, which I did. Then he's away, there's another one coming in, so it's... And
another relatively unknown manager, Dr. Joe.
Yeah, lovely man, lovely guy, just, again, totally different way about how he went about things, and sometimes like quite bizarre, but and I really liked it.
What things were bizarre about him?
He'd just done wee things in warm-ups, and they used to hold your breath in warm-ups and run about, and they're like wee boys, senior player holding your breath, running about, but what he was saying, like, we're going to expand your lungs, so you're running and you're holding your breath, so you're expanding your lungs, but he didn't go into detail, just told them to hold their breath, hop, 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 and he was just like, we used to do wee drills, like waves of attack, and you're just like, what are we doing, but he brung Lubo.
Well, this is the thing, I was going to ask you about that, because you say to any Celtic fan, Dr. Joe Venglos, and the first thing they say is, he was the one that brought Lubo. You just did it yourself. Yeah. What was it like as a player when this Slovakian arrived that nobody had really heard of?
I know, you just look at there and, like, again, the media was like getting this old guy coming into Celtic nobody knows, and totally just disrespectful towards it, just ignorance towards what the guy had done. And in France, he was a legend. Aye. We didn't know that.
He's not one of us, therefore he must be rubbish.
Yeah, we've not heard of him. He's not a household name. But when we seen him, we're like, geez, he's incredible.
You saw that in training straight away?
Aye, I always remember he set a ball up at the edge of the D in the 18-yard box, and me and Henrik were standing there, and he said, this is like a penalty, you should always score here. And he's bent one in with his right foot in the far corner. And he got it back and done it with his left foot in the other corner. Just scary. But I think it was Giggs' testimonial. It was young Liam Miller. Arrest him. He went up to Cantona after the game and asked to swap jerseys, and Cantona, I want Moravcik. Because although we didn't know him, but in France he was like, they absolutely loved him, the number 10. Yeah.
And do you think he was kind of shocked as well? I mean, the game against Rangers, his first game against Rangers, when he scored the 2 goals, and the famous reaction or the famous non-reaction where he kind of stands and he's mobbed by his teammates and he's kind of looking around as if to say, what have I done? Was it a bit of a culture shock for him? Yeah,
I think it's, as I said, I think for any people going to Celtic, and I think, we take everything aside, I think that's what they miss. Because you don't get that any places. You don't get that atmosphere or the passion or the... people talk about the clubs and size of clubs, but it's the fans. It's the fans that make it, and that's the things that come across to the players when they leave Celtic. It's not obviously the other clubs can give them more finances, and you've seen it just now with players leaving, with Dembele there. You'll get more money, but you'll not have the same, the same feelings it does when he has with the Celtic fans, or the gratitude and the people adoring them, and been part of a Celtic family, and that's, you don't understand that until you finish your career, you're playing. You know, you see it there at the time, you think you're only because you're there, but I think once you're in and you've wore the jersey and done well for the club, you're always part of it.
You seem to cope quite well with, as you said, you know, you were the Celtic captain and some big names at a big time in the club's history, but you seem to cope really well with with the notoriety, with the fame and the fans and all the rest of it. It didn't seem to change you at all. Did you find that bit quite easy?
To be honest, I was very uncomfortable with it. I didn't like adulation. I didn't like people, you know, even they'd done a song for me which I got a stick in, you know, when they played it. I don't know, I just never comfortable with even my testimonial going in the park after it with my kids, you know, and thanking everybody and back there. I just feel so uncomfortable, and when it's you know, when it's Henrik and everybody else, and you're like a fan myself. But I think, I don't know, it's just something that I found. Do
you think that helped you? Keep your feet in the ground?
So, keep your feet in the ground, yeah. For me, I was a lucky boy, it was just my job. You know, I was lucky to be there, and for 10 years I always said that. You know, and I stayed through in Edinburgh and travelled for 10 years to keep my family away from that and keep a normal life. You know, and keep my kids away from things and grow up and, you know, go back. That's my job, and this is my family, and try and keep it as normal as possible.
You played under a number of Celtic managers. Obviously Tommy Bonds brought you in, then Wim Jansen, Dr Joe, the Barnsdale-Gleish era, and then Martin O'Neill as well. When you look back, is there a particular time under a particular manager that you think, yeah, that was my favourite?
No, there's too many. There's too many good bits. I think, you know, as I said, that with Tommy, brilliant with Tommy, with Wim, stopping 10 in a row. Barnes was difficult. Dr Joe, there was good bits. Unfortunately, I had 2 operations that year after the World Cup, and my patella tendon, which I was more worried about my career finishing at that point, 25. But I managed to come back from that. Then with John Barnes, I came back into the team, and there was bits there that they said I would take from him, and bits there that I thought the communication would have been better, you know, with him. And obviously with Kenny, we won the League Cup with Kenny, which was great, and working with him. Then Martin was just a whole different, you know, ball game with the players he brought in, the characters, and some great memories, some great laughs along the way. And I think when you're a player and you finish, you know, you miss the dressing room. And I think that's the toughest part to come to terms with. You know, you're going to coach and management, but you're not in the dressing room. You want to be involved, or you want to share a bit of laugh and a joke with them, but you've got to keep yourself outside of the fence. And I think that's the hardest bit to deal with, because you're still relatively young. You're still in your mid 30s, and you know, you're hoping you've got another 50 years. but you can't play football now, and you're like, it's difficult, you know. You mentioned that Martin on another level in terms of the players he brought in, and of course, you know, legendary status as a Celtic manager. You know, taking us to a European final in Seville. You were there at the time. Was that how annoying was that day? How frustrating was that day for you personally? It was. I think because we knew we had it. You know, I think the way we started the game, they scored the goal. The lad Derley scored the goal, and Henrik came in, equalised, then they scored, then we equalised again. And I came on in 70 odd minutes, I think, for Lambo, and Martin asked me to go and Mark Deco. So I went to go and stop him, get on the ball, and I'd done that, and I thought, I don't mean that changed the game. I just, you know, because my first pass, I gave it to them, and the guy nearly scored, which would have probably killed my career. Linechev, like my dad said that, you know, this is your first pass. I played a side one, and the guy took it, you know, and just. But I thought we had upper hand, you know, in the last bits of the game for an extra time. Then Bobo picked up, I thought it was a silly second yellow, and then we had to change the shape, and I went back in, changed back into defence. Then we lost a goal near the end before we could go to penalties. But I don't know, at that point we're kind of holding for penalties, you know, with the man down.
looking back on it, you know, it was 15 years ago. Do you look back on it with pride at having played in a European final, or does it still annoy you the fact that we lost it and you actually don't want to talk about it? You don't look at your medal?
I've not watched the game back. Never watched the game back, and I've lost my medal. So it's
That answers that question then.
yeah, it's history. It's if I'd won it, then it's the only things I worried about was winning. Runners up was no good.
We'll touch on, you know, when you left Celtic and, you know, your career after that and getting into management if we've got time, but international career as well. You mentioned the World Cup in France in '98. What was that like? I've spoken to your good friend Simon Donnelly about that, and he kind of talks about, you know, he kind of wondering why he was there, because, you know, on the bench and maybe one for the future. You got game time at least.
Yeah, game time again, but that season, you know, as I said, I changed my position and was right wing back quite a bit. And Craig Burley, who's sitting midfield for Celtic, had a good season scoring goals for Celtic. But he started with Craig in the first game at right wing back, and I was on the bench. And you know, I was player of the year in Scotland. I thought I would at least get on, and he brought on players that hadn't played. You know, that hadn't played. No disrespect to him. You know, I think what he'd done was he gave guys that he relied on, maybe helped him to get to the championships. Sorry, the World Cup. You know, Bill and Tosh, who didn't play a lot for us that year at Celtic, and Billy McKinlay, we were getting beat. I just thought in that first game I'd love to have got on against Brazil, but a wee bit disappointed I didn't. I came on against Norway and thought I did okay. Moved Burley into midfield, and Burley ended up scoring
the goal, yeah.
In the last game against Morocco, which was a tough game, and it was a bit of a disaster, the match, but like taking off in that game, Billy gets sent off.
Take it you've never watched that one back either?
No. But again, you know, I didn't think at the time that it was going to be my last championship, World Cup or Euros. I thought, or Scotland.
It was Scotland's last one.
Yeah, and it's pretty sad to think that, you know, because you know I thought with some.
Overall, though, satisfied with the number of caps that you did win?
33. I thought I should have more. I thought I should more, to be honest. I mean, there was times there was players in front of me, and I was going to chuck it. I was fed up, got away for the family for a week, and I think, you know, when you get 25 caps, they give you a medal, a silver medal, and they give you it there. And it was, I think we were away in Spain, and they did a wee presentation, and it's a wee speech. The boys asked for a wee speech. I mean, 25, and I said that's good for 7 squads. You know,
big.
But I mean, as I said, it's a great honour to play for your country. But you don't think that when you're not getting left out and you're in the stand and you think you should be playing, you know. And I think if you accept it, then you believe it as well. So I would defy anybody to think they're not good enough to be playing. You know, I was no different. I thought I was playing well for Celtic at times, and there's other players in front of me. Maybe because they're slightly taller in that position, I don't know. But again, 33 caps, you said to that as a wee boy, you've got to have 33 caps and play in the World Cup, and unbelievable. Yeah.
Obviously, having achieved so much with Celtic, 4 league titles, 3 Scottish Cups, 3 League Cups, a testimonial as well. You then leave, you go to Wolves, back up then Aberdeen, and I presume you're not one of these ex-Celtic players that says, "Oh, I didn't realise how big the club was until I left." I presume you knew after 10 years, listen, it ain't going to be like this again.
Yeah, I knew that the day I left. I knew the day I went down to Wolverhampton, showing around the stadium. And the guy was saying, you know, I think it's 30,000 here, and you know, and it's the fans there, and I just came for 60,000. But they were trying to obviously impress us. But it was this. To be honest, that was sad because it's not how I wanted it to finish. I wanted to finish my career there, but you know, obviously Martin Gordon coming in and getting his own players in. I just think how we dealt with it. And obviously how it was put across to the fans and done your testimonial and never try to go anywhere, and so you're trying to put your side across and people to believe that you didn't want to go. And my wife had just given birth to a third child there, so I hadn't planned to. It's like, I'm away to Wolverhampton. Yeah. So I was like, what? This is, you know, that it was not what I wanted. But it's football. I think, as I said, when into management, you understand things differently. You know, I was a senior player. I was still 31. I think a year younger than what Bruni was. but I thought, you know, I had a good season there as well, and that my last season at Celtic. You know, I wanted to be there another few seasons, but it wasn't to be.
Was it always your intention to go into management?
It wasn't when I was younger. As I got older, it was actually just when I was finishing at Wales. I put into my B licence, and I went to. I think the biggest thing for me doing it was when working with other managers after was I would do it this way. I don't like the way they're doing it. I would try to treat the players that way. And you see things and see what they're about as people, the managers, you know. And I wanted to try and help players and get satisfaction and develop them and do it that way. And I get such an enjoyment with doing that. And I think that's what I missed at Partick Thistle. I had lads that were rejected for other clubs. I had Stephen O'Donnell left Celtic, he's now an international player. Aaron Taylor-Sinclair was at Montrose, had Ballatoni for Hearts, Motherwell players, wee Lawless. So you bring them in, give them a second chance, and it worked for me. They were hungry. And I went, fortunately enough, I left there, I went to Dundee United. I knew they had the facilities. The previous manager, Peter Houston, left because he couldn't take the club forward with the cuts, and I knew going into it was going to be a difficult job. I think it was just under £7 million debt. So the plan was to do it in 5 years, but we knew we had to stimulate the academy and bring players in and do it that way, because unless you get a big investor to do it, it's very difficult. So I've done the same again. I got Ron Robertson. For 6 months I took over for Peter. I lost John Daly to Rangers, Johnny Russell to Derby, Barry Douglas went to Poland, and I had to slice everything down, cut the budget down by quite a bit, which I've done, live with it.
Did you manage to find something to replace the buzz of playing, or did you just accept that was never going to happen? I
did with the youngsters, because, you know, when I seen like Robertson, now he's captain of Scotland, he was the same wee boy I was. Obviously he's done a lot better than me, but he was the same, too small. You know, unfortunately it was at Celtic. I don't know whose decision that was, but I was the same wee boy, the same wee lad rejected there, and just like, do you know what, I'm going to show you. And I think that's what I liked. That's what I liked with management, because I could see myself and getting the joy when Stu and Gaz came to Celtic and Nadir. You know, people say, oh, you're working for your old club, or my contract details came in. I was like, it's not about that. You know, if people know me, they know what I'm about, they know what kind of person I am. I get such enjoyment of reliving my youth through them and passing on. So when I went down to York, it was a disaster for me, which was probably one of the most difficult jobs that I could have taken. But my own belief, and I thought I could do it. The owner and the chairman, who's, despite me having a nightmare, they're not doing well for him. He's my best friend, right. Which tells you, he asked me to stay behind and help him run his club last year. So he trusted me as a person, and that tells me, you know, more than anything else.
You talk about people who knew you as a person. Just before we finish, one guy who knows you really well is Simon Donnelly, who's a regular on Celtic TV. And I phoned Sid yesterday and I said, I'm speaking to Jackie tomorrow. Any stories, something, what do I need to ask him that, you know, give you a good anecdote? And he said, get him to tell you about the time where he was in Brian Scott's physio room and he phoned up the driver who had Fergus McCann in the car, something about the trying to find out who the new manager of Celtic was going to be.
Yeah.
What happened?
It was Jamie Church. So Jamie, he used to pick, if you see boys coming for the airport, Jamie's a brilliant guy.
Jamie still works at Celtic?
Aye, he's still there. So Jamie used to pick everybody up into the airports. And we came in to train in the morning, obviously, the speculation who the new manager's going to be. And
so what point was this? Who had just gone?
Vim.
So this was before Dr. Joe?
So Dr. Joe was coming in, but the rumours it was Ruud Gullit. That was the rumours going round at the time, and all the different names were put in at that. And so we were in the physio's room, so I'm in Brian Scott's room, and the other boys are there. So I'll go and phone Jamie. He'll be at Glasgow Airport picking somebody up or whatever. So I phoned him. So you phone for Celtic Park, it could be any number, you know. So it wouldn't say it was specifically the physio room. So I phoned him. So it's going to his mobile, and it was at the time when mobiles clearly it could be the reception. It wouldn't just him necessarily hanging up. So when I'm phoning it, he's like, "Hello, and I'm Jamie. Is that you?" And he's pressing stop, and I'm just thinking it's a signal because of the back in the day.
He just doesn't want to speak to you.
Yeah, because he's got Dr. Joe and Fergus in the car, unbeknown to me. So I kept phoning him, and they're like, and the other boys are listening, and he's like, hello, he's going, oh, is that you, Jamie? And he's panicking. I mean, it must have been 5 or 6 times, and then Fergus just went, is that you, Jamie? And Fergus went, I can't do his voice. He went, who is this? I demand to know who this is. He went, who are you talking to? And put the phone down. And I was like, oh, I just done. So, and then Jamie, I met Jamie after it, and he said he absolutely exploded. He says, Fergus went, I want that man found. I want him out of my football club. And
he knew it was you?
He said he had an incline it was me. But what happened was he went to Edinburgh Airport. So Dr. Joe was coming to Edinburgh. And Fergus was waiting in the car, all the press are waiting in Glasgow Airport. And he said to Jamie, he says, look, do you know Dr. Joe? He says, well, I've seen him before. He was at Aston Villa and I don't know what he looks like. And Fergus said, he'll be wearing a red tie. So Jamie's went in and there's a Labour conference on. So everybody's coming across with the flights with red ties on, and he sees Doctor and he's late and trying to get back to do all the stuff and the media and the press. And Fergus is obviously irate at the time taken. So he says, we got back into the car and Dr. Joe's sitting at the back and Fergus in the front, and he says, and then you phoned, and it just like
That was it.
So I could have been there for a lot. I could have left Celtic a lot earlier than what I did.
Well, listen, you didn't, and you were there for 10 years, and it was great to watch your career, and you are a Celtic icon, Jackie. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.